the day my alarm clock took revenge. So one day I bought this fancy new alarm clock. It had all the bells and whistles, literally. I'm thinking, finally, no more oversleeping. First night I set it to 7 a.m., confident I'd wake up refreshed. Well, I don't know what kind of vendetta this clock had, but the next morning it went off at 5 a.m. with a sound that could wake the dead. I'm talking foghorn level loud. Groggily, I fumble around and hit snooze. I lay back down, and not even 2 minutes later, bam! It's screaming again. I hit snooze, but it keeps at it like it's got a personal mission to ruin my life. Finally, I pick it up, half asleep, ready to throw it out the window. But instead, I manage to throw it at my cat, who now thinks I've declared war. Long story short, the alarm's in the trash, my cat's in hiding, and I'm still oversleeping. How Fortnite saved my night. So I was having the worst day ever. My car broke down, my phone died while I was waiting for a tow, and I was stranded for what felt like hours. By the time I got home, I was completely drained. All I wanted to do was zone out, so I hopped onto Fortnite for a quick game to blow off some steam. And here's where it gets interesting. I'm playing in squads with randoms, and we're having a decent match. Then one of my teammates asks, "Hey, does anyone need a job?" I laughed, thinking it was a joke, but he was serious. Turns out this guy owned a small tech business, and they were hiring. I'd been looking for a new job for months, so I asked him more about it. By the end of the match, we exchanged info, and guess what? A week later, I had an interview. Long story short, a random Fortnite game ended up helping me land a job. Who would have thought, right? The envelope that changed everything. I came home from work to find a plain white envelope slipped under my door. No return address, no name, just my address scribbled in messy handwriting. I figured it was junk mail, but something about it felt off. I opened it, and inside was a single piece of paper with just 2 words. It's time. That was it. No explanation, no signature. I looked around my empty apartment, feeling a sudden chill. I tried to shake it off, but as I turned the paper over, I noticed something I hadn't before. A tiny symbol in the corner, one I'd seen before in an old family photo. The next day, I started receiving strange calls. No voice on the other end, just heavy breathing. That's when I realized that whoever sent the letter knew something about me, something I hadn't even told my closest friends. The silent passenger who knew my name. It was late, and I was one of the last people left on the bus. I had my headphones in, scrolling through my phone, when I noticed the man sitting across from me. He wasn't doing anything, just staring straight ahead, hands resting on his lap. At first, I didn't think much of it, but then he turned his head slowly and looked directly at me. His expression didn't change, just a blank, emotionless stare. I quickly looked away, trying to ignore him, but I could feel his eyes on me the entire time. As my stop approached, I got up to leave. The man didn't move, didn't blink, but just before the doors opened, he whispered, "I'll see you tomorrow." I've never seen him again, but I take a different bus route now. Every time I pass that stop, I can't help but glance around, half expecting him to be there, waiting. The day my GPS took me to a secret beach. All right, so here's a wild one. I decided to take a spontaneous road trip to clear my head. I plugged in a random beach destination into my GPS, looking forward to some relaxing waves and sunshine. But the GPS took me down this weird, winding road I'd never seen before. I was starting to think I'd made a huge mistake when suddenly, the road ended at this overgrown, abandoned path. My GPS said, "Arrived," but it was clear there was nothing around. Curious and a bit adventurous, I decided to follow the path on foot. It led me through some dense woods and down a steep hill. After what felt like an eternity, I stumbled upon a hidden beach, completely deserted, with the most stunning view I'd ever seen. Turns out it was this secret spot that locals knew about, but wasn't on any maps. I spent the day there soaking up the sun and enjoying the peace and quiet. It felt like I'd discovered a hidden gem, and it made my road trip unforgettable. Sometimes the best adventures are the ones you stumble upon by accident. The knock that shouldn't have happened. It was 3 a.m., and I was lying in bed, half asleep, when I heard it. 3 loud knocks on my front door. I live alone, so I immediately froze. Who would be knocking at this hour? I checked my phone. No missed calls, no texts. Slowly, I got out of bed and tiptoed to the door. I peered through the peephole, but no one was there. I stood still, listening, my heart racing, when the knocks came again, louder this time. I opened the door slightly, expecting to find someone on my doorstep, but the street was empty. No footsteps, no shadows, just silence. I shut the door, double-locked it, and went back to bed, trying to convince myself it was all in my head. But every night since then, at exactly 3 a.m., those knocks return. I don't answer anymore. The house that disappeared overnight. A couple of months ago, I took a shortcut through an unfamiliar neighborhood on my way home. There was this huge, eerie house at the end of the block that gave me chills. I didn't think much of it until the next day when I decided to take the same route. But the house? It was gone. Not like demolished or empty, just gone, like it had never existed. The lot was completely empty, and the people living nearby acted like there had never been a house there at all. I asked around, but no one had any memory of it. I even looked up old maps and records, but nothing came up. Now, whenever I walk through that neighborhood, I can't shake the feeling that I'm being watched by something or someone that isn't there anymore. The Minecraft seed that should have stayed hidden. A couple of weeks ago, I was bored and browsing online for interesting Minecraft seeds. I came across a forum post talking about a secret seed that supposedly no one should ever use. Naturally, I had to try it. When I loaded the world, everything seemed normal at first, just the usual trees, grass, and caves. But then, strange things started happening. Animals behaved weirdly, staring at me from a distance without moving. There were no villages, no structures, just silence. As I explored further, I noticed random signs placed in caves that read, "You're not alone," even though I was playing single player. The deeper I went, the more unnerving it got. Then I found a mansion deep underground with no windows or doors. Inside were rows of armor stands, all wearing player skins that looked familiar. That's when I realized. The skins looked like people from the forum who had mentioned the seed. I immediately quit the game and deleted the world, but sometimes I still hear eerie Minecraft cave sounds in my room late at night. The time I accidentally joined a biker gang. Okay, so this is hands down one of the weirdest things that's ever happened to me. I'm out on a solo road trip just trying to clear my head. I pull into this small diner in the middle of nowhere for a quick bite. As I'm parking my car, I see a group of bikers rolling in, like leather jackets, big motorcycles, the whole deal. I go inside, grab a seat, and start eating when one of the bikers comes up to me. He asks, "You riding with us?" And before I can answer, I look outside, and my car is parked next to all their bikes. They must have thought I was one of them. I panicked and just said, yeah, I guess. Next thing I know, I'm outside, pretending like I belong, chatting with these guys about their rides, and one of them asks if I'm heading to the next town. At this point, I'm way too deep to back out, so I nod. Before I know it, I'm driving down the highway, leading the entire group of bikers. I thought they'd figure me out, but somehow I ended up leading them to their destination. When we stopped, I told them, "Hey, this was fun, but I think I'll just stick to my 4 wheels from now on." They laughed, and I got out of there as fast as I could. The epic laundry wipeout. One day, I decided to do laundry like a responsible adult. I grabbed the basket, piled high with clothes, and headed downstairs. Now, I don't know if it was my confidence or the weight of the laundry, but as I stepped down, I misjudged the last step. Suddenly, I'm flying through the air, laundry scattering in all directions like a slow-motion action scene. I hit the ground, surrounded by socks and underwear, with my pride completely shattered. As if that wasn't bad enough, my roommate walks in, takes one look at the scene, and says, "Well, at least your landing was soft." The Fortnite skin that shouldn't exist. I was scrolling through the Fortnite item shop looking for new skins when I noticed something strange, a skin I had never seen before. It didn't have a name, just a dark hooded figure with glowing red eyes. It wasn't listed for sale, but somehow it was in my locker. I equipped it thinking it was a freebie or a glitch and jumped into a match. The second I dropped into the map, weird things started happening. Other players couldn't see me, but I could see them. I could hear their voice chats, even though I wasn't in their party. As the match went on, I noticed that I wasn't taking any damage. No one could shoot me, and I couldn't lose. At first, it felt like a cheat code, but then the game started glitching. Buildings disappeared, and players vanished into thin air. After the match, I tried to unequip the skin, but it was locked. I even tried deleting and reinstalling the game, but it was still there, always equipped. Now, whenever I play, it's like I'm not even in the game. No one can see me, hear me, or fight me. It's like I don't exist, and I'm stuck wearing a skin that shouldn't exist either. The creepy package. That led to a shocking discovery. So, I live in this small apartment building and we all kind of know each other, but not super well. One day, I'm coming home and see this package sitting outside my neighbor's door. No big deal, right? Except, the package is there every day for like a week. And here's the weird part. I never saw them pick it up. Curiosity got the best of me, so I knock on their door to ask about it. No answer. Days go by, and the package is still sitting there, untouched. It's creeping me out at this point. Finally, one morning, I'm leaving for work, and I see the door open just a crack. So I knock again. No answer. I lean in to peek, and guess what I see? It's a different neighbor who had been living there for months without anyone knowing. They'd moved in while the original neighbor was away on a long trip. Turns out the package wasn't forgotten. It just wasn't theirs. I laughed at myself for getting all worked up over it. But man, I was sure something strange was going on. The haunted elevator that trapped me. All right, so I never believed in haunted places until this happened. I was staying at an old hotel for a work trip. You know, the kind that looks straight out of a horror movie. I had to take the elevator up to my room, but when the doors opened, there was no one inside. Whatever, I get in. I press my floor, but the elevator doesn't move. I start pressing the button again, and suddenly, the lights flicker. Now, I'm freaked out. The elevator jerks a bit, but still doesn't go anywhere. I hit the emergency button, but nothing happens. I'm stuck. Suddenly, the elevator shoots up, but stops at a random floor. The doors slowly open, and there's no one there. At this point, I'm sweating. I hit the close door button over and over, and when the doors finally close, the elevator just starts working again, like nothing ever happened. When I got out, I told the front desk, and they said, "Oh, don't worry, it happens sometimes." Like what? Never staying there again, that's for sure. The unexpected surprise, hidden in my apartment. All right, so you're not going to believe what I found hidden in my apartment. I've been living here for over a year, and one day I noticed a small, weirdly placed vent behind a shelf I'd never bothered to move. It was strange because the other vents in the apartment were way bigger. Curiosity got the best of me, so I decided to open it up. Inside, a small metal box tucked away in the wall. I was freaking out, thinking it might be something left behind by the previous tenant. So I opened the box, and inside are all these old photos, handwritten letters, and a key. The photos were black and white, super vintage, looked like they were from the 1940s or something. Now I'm wondering, what's this key for? I tried it in all the locks in the apartment, but it didn't fit any of them. I still don't know what it opens, but it makes me think there's more to this apartment than I realized. Who knows what else could be hidden here? Maybe I'll find out, or maybe it's best I don't. The wallet that uncovered a life change. It was a typical Friday night when I got a random message on social media inviting me to a party. The thing is, I didn't recognize the sender. I thought it was a mistake, but was bored, so I decided to check it out anyway. When I showed up at the address, the house was huge, and the party was already in full swing. But as I walked in, I realized no one there knew who I was, and things got weird fast. People were whispering, giving me strange looks, and one person even asked me, "Why are you here?" I shrugged it off. But when I checked my phone again, the original invite was gone. No trace of the message or the person who sent it. Feeling uneasy, I left early. The Minecraft build that came to life. My friends and I spent weeks building an epic castle in Minecraft. It was massive, with towering walls, secret rooms, and an elaborate dungeon. We were so proud of it that we decided to leave the game running on a private server overnight. The next day, when we logged back in, we noticed something weird. Parts of the castle had changed. Rooms we hadn't built were suddenly there, and there were tunnels leading to places we hadn't explored. At first, we thought one of us had done some late-night building, but no one owned up to it. As we kept playing, we started hearing strange noises coming from deep within the castle. Footsteps, doors opening and closing, even though no one was near them. Then we saw it, an unfamiliar player skin moving through the halls, but when we tried to find them, they vanished into the walls. It was as if our build had come to life, growing and changing on its own. Eventually, we had to abandon the castle because it felt like we weren't the only ones living there anymore. The unexpected message from my old high school locker. Okay, so this is a bit of a weird one. I recently went back to my old high school to clear out my old locker. It's been years since I graduated, but the school was doing some renovations and needed to empty out all the lockers. When I finally got to mine, it was surprisingly full of old stuff, textbooks, notebooks, and even some old photos. But here's where it gets strange. I found a small, sealed envelope wedged behind a book. It was addressed to me. but it didn't have a date or a sender's name. Curious, I opened it up, and inside was a handwritten note from someone I barely remembered. It was a message from a classmate who had been a bit of a mystery back then. The note said they had always wanted to be friends but never had the courage to say so. They'd kept the letter hidden, hoping one day they could finally reach out. I was surprised and touched. I'd completely forgotten about this person, but reading their note made me smile. It was like a blast from the past that reminded me of how many people's lives intersect in unexpected ways. The Fortnite challenge that went too far. My friends and I were hanging out when one of them suggested we try this Fortnite challenge that had been going viral, something about playing for 24 hours straight. At first, it was all fun and games, just running squads and goofing around. But after a few hours, weird stuff started happening. Our in-game characters would freeze in place, and we started hearing faint voices through our headsets. Whispers, but not from any of us. Then, the map changed. We didn't recognize it, and no one could explain why we were suddenly in a dark, foggy version of the game. We tried to quit, but the game kept crashing, forcing us back in. And every time we restarted, we were in the same creepy version of Fortnite. The storm closed in faster than normal, and strange figures started appearing in the fog, ones that weren't other players. Eventually, we had to unplug our consoles just to get out. We haven't spoken about it since, but I'll never forget that night. It felt like the game was playing us. That time I got lost in a foreign city. So I was exploring this beautiful old city I'd never been to before, totally on my own. I was snapping photos, trying all the local food, living my best life, until I realized I had absolutely no idea where I was, no Wi-Fi, no map, and every street looks the same. My heart started racing as I realized I had no idea how to get back to my hotel. I tried to stay calm, but every turn seemed to lead me deeper into the maze. I asked for directions, but my broken attempts at the language only got me blank stares. That's when I found myself in a dark, narrow alley. No signs, no people, just a bunch of stray cats watching me like they knew I didn't belong there. I started to panic, thinking I'd be wandering this city forever. But just as I was about to give up, I saw a tiny familiar landmark in the distance. My heart leaped as I realized I might actually find my way back. Step by step, I retraced my path, and after what felt like hours, I finally stumbled into the main square. Lesson learned: always drop a pin on your map, or at least learn how to say, "Help, I'm lost," in the local language. The night I met my doppelganger. I was out with friends at a local bar when I noticed someone who looked exactly like me. At first, I thought it was a trick of the light, but as I got closer, I realized this person was my mirror image. Same hair, same smile. Curiosity piqued, I approached them, and we struck up a conversation. It turned out we had eerily similar life stories and experiences. We laughed about the coincidence, but then things took a strange turn when they revealed a secret. They were in town for a reason. Something connected to my past. That night felt surreal, as if I was looking into a parallel universe. Meeting my doppelganger made me reflect on the paths our lives can take and how interconnected we all are in unexpected ways. The Minecraft server that shouldn't exist. My friends and I love to play Minecraft together, so one night we decided to check out a new public server we found on a sketchy website. Everything seemed fine at first. The world was huge, filled with cool builds and custom biomes. But as we explored, we noticed something odd. None of the other players were talking or moving. Their usernames floated above their heads, but they just stood there, frozen. We thought it was a lag issue, but then one of them turned and stared directly at me. Suddenly, the chat box filled with creepy, cryptic messages like, "Don't dig too deep and we see you." I thought it was just a prank, but then my friend's screen went black and they got kicked from the server. One by one, we all got booted until I was the last one left. When I tried to leave, my character couldn't move. And that's when a message popped up. "You've been added to the collection." I haven't gone back since, and the server is now impossible to find. The mirror that watched me. I found an antique mirror at a flea market. Beautiful, old, with intricate carvings around the frame. It was exactly what my apartment needed. I hung it up in my bedroom, thinking nothing of it. But after a few nights, I noticed something strange. Whenever I walked by, it felt like the reflection wasn't quite right. Like my reflection was watching me, even when I wasn't looking directly at it. At first, I thought I was imagining things, but then it got worse. One night, as I was brushing my teeth, I saw it. In the corner of the mirror, something moved, just for a second. But when I turned around, there was nothing there. I chalked it up to being tired and ignored it. But the next morning, I woke up to find the mirror had moved slightly on the wall. No one else had been in the apartment. I tried to ignore it, but every night, I felt that unsettling sensation, like my reflection wasn't mine anymore. Last night I threw a blanket over it. I can't even stand to look at it anymore. The wrong number. That wasn't a mistake. I was in the middle of dinner when my phone rang. It was a number I didn't recognize, so I ignored it. A minute later, it rang again. Same number. This time, I answered, ready to tell them they had the wrong person. But when I said hello, there was a pause. Then a quiet voice on the other end said, "I've been trying to reach you. Don't go home tonight." I froze, my fork halfway to my mouth. "Who is this?" I asked, but they hung up. My heart started pounding, and I stared at the phone, confused and unnerved. I tried calling the number back, but it was disconnected. I thought it was just some weird prank. But when I left the restaurant and got to my street, I saw flashing lights. My apartment building was surrounded by police cars. That call saved me from being in the middle of a home invasion. But I still have no idea who warned me or how they knew. The day I became a detective by accident. One rainy afternoon, I was stuck at home when I decided to organize my cluttered closet. As I was sorting through old boxes, I stumbled upon a mysterious diary. The cover was worn, and it looked like it hadn't been opened in years. Curiosity got the better of me, so I started reading. The diary belonged to a girl from my neighborhood who had vanished without a trace years ago. Each entry was filled with clues and cryptic messages about her last days. Before I knew it, I was piecing together a puzzle that had baffled everyone. I contacted the local authorities with the information I found, and they were shocked. My accidental discovery turned me into a part-time detective, and I realized that sometimes curiosity can lead to uncovering the truth in the most unexpected ways. The stranger's letter that changed everything. So, I'm sitting at a cafe one morning just minding my own business and working on my laptop. Out of nowhere, this stranger sits down across from me. At first, I thought they just needed a seat, but then they leaned in and said something that gave me chills. "I know your secret." I froze. What secret? I hadn't told anyone about the thing I'd been hiding for months. Before I could even react, they slid a piece of paper across the table and left without another word. My heart was pounding as I unfolded it. It wasn't a threat or anything scary, just a handwritten note that said, "Sometimes, the things you keep hidden are the things that make you strongest." I looked around for the stranger, but they were gone. To this day, I still don't know who they were, but that message? It hit hard. It made me realize that maybe I didn't need to hide that part of myself anymore. The time I traded places with a stranger. So this happened on a super ordinary day that turned into anything but. I was running errands and had to drop off a package at the post office. While waiting in line, I noticed this guy standing next to me, looking just as bored as I felt. We struck up a conversation, and he mentioned he was having a really rough day. I didn't think much of it until, out of the blue, he offered to swap places with me. Like, literally trade our lives for a bit, just for fun. I laughed it off, but he was serious. Before I knew it, we'd joked about it enough that we actually decided to go through with it. We exchanged our phones, wallets, and even our daily schedules. It was all a big laugh, until I got a call from his number later that day. It turns out he'd been dealing with some serious personal issues that I had no idea about. The call was from someone asking about a crucial meeting he was supposed to attend. I ended up helping him out by taking care of the meeting for him. By the end of the day, I felt like I'd really stepped into someone else's shoes and made a difference. It was a strange but eye-opening experience, showing me that everyone's life is more complicated than it seems. The elevator that led to the unknown. It was late at night, and I was headed home after a long day at work. I got into the elevator of my apartment building, hit the button for my floor, and waited. Everything was normal, until the elevator stopped at a floor I hadn't pressed. I thought someone else was getting on. But when the doors opened, the floor was dark and completely deserted. No one was there. I quickly hit the close door button, but before it shut, I noticed something odd. There was an old, dusty suitcase sitting in the hallway. Curiosity got the better of me, so I stepped out to take a closer look. The suitcase was locked, but it had a tag with my apartment number on it. I freaked out and rushed back into the elevator. The locked room in the attic. When I moved into my new house, the landlord casually mentioned that the attic was locked and had been that way for years. He said the previous owners didn't leave a key and never wanted to open it. I didn't think much of it at first. Just some old, forgotten storage space, right? One night, a few weeks after moving in, I heard a faint scratching sound coming from above my bedroom. I brushed it off as mice or maybe the wind. But every night, the scratching grew louder, more deliberate. almost like something was trying to get out. Curiosity got the better of me. I grabbed a crowbar and went up to the attic. The door was old, the wood brittle, and after a few tries, I managed to force it open. Inside was a single chair, facing the only window in the room, and in the dust on the floor, I saw what looked like footprints, as if someone had been pacing in circles. But there were no signs of anyone ever living up there. I locked the attic door again and haven't touched it since, but every night I still hear that scratching, louder than before. The mysterious gift that changed my life. It all started on my birthday. I received a package that I hadn't ordered. The label had no return address, just my name. I was skeptical but curious, so I opened it. Inside was an old compass, beautifully crafted but seemingly out of place. Intrigued, I took it with me on my next hiking trip. As I navigated the trails, the compass began to point in a direction I hadn't planned on exploring. Against my better judgment, I followed it. After an hour of trekking, I stumbled upon a breathtaking hidden waterfall. It felt magical, and I spent hours there, soaking in the beauty and tranquility. That day not only changed my perspective on nature, but also taught me to embrace the unexpected gifts life throws my way. The unbelievable coincidence that changed my day. Okay, you won't believe this, but I experienced the craziest coincidence the other day. I'm at a coffee shop, waiting in line, minding my own business, when I overhear two people behind me talking about someone with my exact name. Like, not just my first name, my full name. And I'm like, there's no way. I turn around and say, sorry, did you just say Hugh Jass? They look at me, totally confused, and say, yeah, we were just talking about a friend of ours, named Hugh Jass. At this point, I'm super curious and ask if I can see a picture of this mystery person. They show me a picture, and I kid you not, the person looks almost exactly like me. Same hair, same style, everything. We're all freaking out now, laughing about how wild this is. They even joke that I must have a long-lost twin. As I'm leaving, I couldn't stop thinking, what are the odds? It's one of those moments that feels too weird to be real, but it totally happened. So yeah, the world's a lot smaller than we think sometimes. The creepiest thing that happened on a road trip. Okay, so picture this. It's late at night, you're on a road trip driving through the middle of nowhere, and your GPS suddenly glitches. No signal, no map, just you and miles of empty road. That's exactly where I found myself. Except, things got a lot weirder. As I'm driving, I notice a car behind me. It's been there for a while, but I didn't think much of it, until it started flashing its headlights. At first, I thought it was just a coincidence, but then the car speeds up and gets right behind me. Now I'm freaking out. I try speeding up, but so do they. My mind's racing. Are they following me? Do they want something? After what felt like forever, I spot a gas station up ahead. I pull in, hoping they'll keep driving, but no. They pull in right after me. I'm panicking, ready to bolt inside, when the driver gets out and starts walking toward my car. Turns out my back taillight was out. He was trying to warn me the whole time. So yeah, lesson learned. Sometimes the creepiest situations are just bad communication.